Luigi Mangione has officially pleaded guilty. We're going to get into that, plus President Trump sneaking off of Air Force One, and the trial of Lindsey Clancy. All that and more right now. Welcome to episode 80 of the Republic Brothers podcast. He's Matt, I'm Mike, and today is August 17th. Please hit that subscribe button now so you don't miss our next episode. Luigi Mangione pleaded guilty in Manhattan federal court on 2 counts of stalking resulting in the death of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson, directly admitting on the record that he shot and killed the executive. Mangione entered an open plea, which means without a plea deal from prosecutors, to 1 count of interstate stalking resulting in death and 1 count of cyber stalking resulting in death. In his allocution, Mangione recounted tracking Thompson's schedule by emailing UnitedHealthcare posing as an investor. He stated, "I shot Mr. Thompson in Manhattan and he died. I knew what I was doing was illegal." He cited years of enduring severe, debilitating pain following a broken back, frustration with obstacles in the healthcare insurance system, and the belief that the system had failed him. Each federal stalking charge carries a statutory maximum penalty of life in prison without parole. U.S. District Judge Margaret Garnett scheduled his federal sentencing for December 18, 2026. Federal prosecutors confirmed they will seek life imprisonment. Mangione was scheduled to face a separate trial on New York State charges, including second-degree murder, beginning in September of 2026. Immediately following the federal plea, defense attorney Karen Friedman Agnifilo filed a motion to dismiss the state case, arguing that prosecuting him for murder over the same underlying conduct violates New York statutory double jeopardy protections. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office stated it is prepared to litigate the defense motion and continues to seek prosecution on these state murder charges.
The writing was on the wall for Luigi here. When you look at the evidence, you probably would agree it's a premeditated and targeted attack. It was difficult to make out who the person with the gun was in the videos, but they were clearly able to find evidence that proved it was him. The phone and email records would do that for the prosecutors. To me, that was never the biggest story about this case. For me, it was how many people celebrated a husband and father being murdered just because they didn't like the company or the industry he was in. An Ilhan Omar staffer even tweeted after the news came out that there was a guilty plea and downplayed his crimes. Brianna Lee Rose said, quote, "You'll never convince me that Luigi is a villain while everyone in the Epstein files is roaming free." There are some mentally ill people out there. Let's also not forget there were people out there begging for his freedom because he was seen as attractive by some. It was just a shame how people reacted to this. But that's no longer unusual, I think. We see with every tragedy that some will celebrate. It stuns me that some think violence is the answer, but I would ask them what changed with the healthcare industry after this attack on the UnitedHealthcare CEO. Nothing.
Yeah, absolutely nothing changed. Someone else just stepped into Brian Thompson's shoes and carried on just like nothing ever happened. Luigi Mangione made zero effect in what he was trying to do. And 2 things can be true at the same time. You can say that Luigi is a bad person and also say that the people in the Epstein files are bad people. One doesn't make the other one less true. So Brianna Lee Rose, that was probably a pretty dumb thing to say.
You can also say the healthcare industry is broken, but that doesn't mean you go and shoot the CEO of one of the companies. As I said, it accomplished absolutely nothing. So what's the point?
Yeah, he targeted the wrong person.
Well, there's no one person to target with healthcare. It's
Exactly.
enormous.
Yeah.
Let's move on to our next topic, which is Iran. Imagine watching the President of the United States board Air Force One. The cameras are rolling, the press is watching, everything looks completely normal. Except Donald Trump didn't actually leave Turkey on the Air Force One we saw him board. After the NATO summit in Ankara, U.S. intelligence reportedly received information about a credible and potentially imminent threat against Trump. And according to reporting from Reuters and other outlets, Iranian intelligence apparently knew where Trump was staying, even down to the floor of his hotel. That created a serious problem for the Secret Service. Trump's aircraft was enormous, highly recognizable, and relatively easy to identify. If an adversary knew where Trump was and knew which plane he was supposed to take, that aircraft could become a target. So American officials came up with a deception operation. Trump publicly boarded the familiar blue and white Air Force One, exactly as everyone expected. But shortly afterward, an airport catering truck pulled up alongside the aircraft. Trump and a small group of aides were secretly moved into that truck. The truck then drove away from Air Force One and over to a much smaller military aircraft, a C-32A, which is essentially a military version of the Boeing 757. Trump boarded that aircraft and secretly flew out of Turkey. Meanwhile, the original Air Force One took off without him. Here's the remarkable part of all this. The people on that plane included senior administration officials, White House personnel, and members of the traveling press corps. Some of them apparently didn't even know Trump wasn't aboard. The press pool had also been instructed to keep the window shades closed, which reporters didn't understand at the time. This was to ensure people couldn't look in, but they weren't aware Trump wasn't there. Trump's C-32 eventually arrived in Britain, where he transferred back onto the larger Air Force One. When reporters saw him emerge from the aircraft, everything looked completely normal. Trump walked down the stairs, greeted American personnel, and continued his trip. From the outside, it looked like he simply flew from Turkey on Air Force One. But he hadn't. He had secretly been moved between aircraft in an airport catering truck. And that's the important part of this story. The catering truck wasn't some bizarre presidential travel choice. It was part of a deliberate deception designed to hide Trump's actual location from a potential adversary. The goal wasn't necessarily to make Trump impossible to track. The goal was to make it difficult to determine which aircraft he actually was in. Trump has since confirmed that his security personnel wanted him on another aircraft because of the threat, although he has downplayed the danger and said he simply followed their instructions. And while presidential decoy aircraft have been used before, the secrecy surrounding this operation was quite extraordinary. The press didn't know, some administration personnel didn't know, and the public didn't learn what happened for more than a month. So yes, the President of the United States was secretly transported through an aircraft in a catering truck, but the truck isn't the real story. The story is that U.S. intelligence believed Trump faced a serious enough threat in Turkey that the Secret Service and military went to extraordinary lengths to make an adversary believe he was on one aircraft while secretly putting him on another. For a few hours, everyone watching thought they knew where Trump was, but they didn't.
So where did he end up actually going? I kind of feel bad for all those other people on the plane that didn't know it might be a target, and then they just left him there and said, oh, well, let's take a chance. Sorry.
Yeah, so Trump's C-32 flew to Britain. It stopped briefly. Trump got back on the Air Force One, the 747 version, and then they flew back to the States, and Trump got off and waved and greeted people, and nobody even knew he wasn't on the first leg of the trip.
It's kind of crazy, though, when you think about it. Like, for them to sneak him off the plane, and then for all those people to think he's on the plane the whole time, and then he reappears on the plane and gets off the plane, and no one knew for a month that Trump wasn't even on that flight until later. He boarded later.
Yeah, that kind of tells you who is most important. Keeping the president safe and alive is the number one priority. Now, while we're talking about Iran, let's quickly touch on a few more things before we move on. Monday, August 17th, marks 60 days since the Memorandum of Understanding was signed, but there is no deal, and there does not appear to be a deal imminent. Neither side has been willing to give up on its demands, and we have discussed this many times. Iran is just trying to wait out the Trump administration. On Monday, President Trump also threatened to bomb Oman if it gets in the way of U.S. operations to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Iran claims to have reached an agreement with Oman that would let them control the strait together and charge a toll on ships that pass through. I wish them the best of luck with this. And we've heard Trump say before, I'm going to bomb the crap out of you, but what happens?
Yeah, I saw a clip earlier. I don't know how long ago it was. It was within the last week. That's all I know. Where Trump said, "Yes, we're doing well. We're winning. We're crushing Iran. Yada yada yada." And my thought is, no, we're not. Not like we should be anyway. We're still just sitting around hoping, waiting, wishing for Iran to come around. But at this point, I think it's pretty safe to say that's not going to happen. We're still not dropping the hammer like we should be.
Well, Trump is a deal maker. He's a businessman that wants to make deals. I think he's just struggling to understand the thinking and the logic behind the enemy. He wants a deal because it's good for everyone. Iran doesn't care about the U.S. They want the destruction of America and of Israel. That's the main goal. It's written in their constitution. They don't care about taking some pain if it destroys us. They look at this situation. They know our midterm elections are coming up. And Iran knows dragging this conflict out hurts Trump's chances in the midterms. If this continues on, it will be a topic and people will be voting on it. And they believe Democrats will win and that they will get a more favorable House or Senate that will put the brakes on Trump and allow them to win.
Yeah, I'm just going to keep saying it. I think it's time to stop waiting for the negotiation part to happen and just make it happen.
If you drop the hammer, you're more likely to get them to a deal.
Yeah.
Go back to World War II. Japan was not going to surrender. We dropped the hammer twice, said we were going to do it a third time, and since we had already done it twice, they gave in and accepted an unconditional surrender. You could get that with Iran, but we are a long, long way from getting it.
Yeah, and we're getting to the point now, too, where it's starting to get very annoying every time I fill my truck up with gas. And we keep going back to that. That's the one thing that Americans kind of relate everything to is how much stuff is costing them. And even as a conservative now, when I fill up my truck with gas and I look at that gas price, I say, man, in 2017, 2018, 2019, when President Trump was the president, gas prices were not this high. So we got to do something to fix this because we don't want to lose the midterms because of something like this. When I think there's a lot of conservatives, more than half would say at this point that we are not handling this conflict correctly.
Yes, and I think Trump has a little bit of a grace period on this because gas prices are actually still lower now than when Biden was president.
True. Yeah.
Joe Biden was just so bad that I think it actually bought Trump a bit of grace.
Yeah, and it did, but it's recency bias, right? It's what have you done for me lately? And lately, gas prices have been up. But in this entire time that they've been up, they've never been higher than when Joe Biden was president. So we understand that, and we go, okay, we get it. Prices could be higher. They were higher from 2021 to 2025, but as of right now, they're higher than we want them to be. Actually, I think earlier today I saw, even just today, gas prices are up $1 a barrel. So, but anyway, let's move on to our next thing. We talked about the Luigi Mangione trial. We talked about Iran. Let's talk about the Lindsey Clancy trial. The prosecution just officially rested their case after 4 weeks of testimony. Lindsey Clancy is a former labor and delivery nurse from Duxbury, Massachusetts, and she's accused of killing her 3 children on January 24th, 2023. Her children were Cora, 5, Dawson, 3, and Callan, 8 months old. Prosecutors alleged that Clancy strangled all 3 children with exercise bands while her husband was out of the house. She then attempted suicide by taking pills, cutting herself, and jumping from the second-story window. Clancy survived, but suffered severe spinal injuries and is now paralyzed. The defense team themselves admit that Clancy killed her own kids, but their legal defense is the insanity plea. Her attorneys argue she was suffering from severe postpartum psychiatric illness and therefore was not criminally responsible at the time. The defense is asking if Lindsey Clancy was capable of understanding what she was doing and whether or not it was wrong. The defense argues her condition was made worse by the medication she was prescribed and the failures in coordinating her mental health treatment. The prosecution has a different theory. Their argument is Clancy was mentally distressed, but not psychotic to the point of being incapable of understanding her actions. One of the most important pieces of evidence is what happened immediately before the murders. Prosecutors say Clancy sent her husband out of the house on purpose so that she could be alone with the children. They claim it shows planning and argue that it's not the behavior of someone acting completely unpredictably in a psychotic episode. There are so many questions that the jury will have to find an answer to, but it's hard for me to sit here and say that she should be let out free on an insanity plea. Her husband, Patrick Clancy, gave testimony, but it cut both ways. He described his wife's deterioration and events surrounding finding his children. He testified that Lindsey reportedly had a phone call where she said she heard voices telling her to act. The big question is, can someone experiencing psychosis still behave in an organized and rational way? Now, honestly, I don't know a bunch about this story, and I really don't need to. The main thing I keep seeing online, though, is all the women that are taking Lindsey's side and saying that her husband drove her to kill their kids. They're saying that he mentally abused her and all the other BS buzzwords you can think of. This woman strangled her own kids, and there's still people out there with the nerve to blame the man, to blame the husband. There's a lot of women in today's day and age that have zero clue what accountability is. We could have a whole other conversation on the modern feminist movement and how it made things worse for women, but that's another day. If the shoe was on the other foot and a man did this to his own kids, not one single person would even entertain the idea that it was somehow the woman or the wife's fault.
Well, we might get in trouble for saying something like that there, Mike, but yes, accountability is something modern day women, more so younger ones, struggle with. That part is true. It's tough to sit here and say she shouldn't go to prison for this to me. This is one of the worst crimes you can commit. There may be a case that she was having a psychotic break and didn't understand what she was doing, but mental illness shouldn't get you out of every evil thing you do. I just feel really bad for Patrick Clancy. Imagine going out to grab things for your house and you come home and your wife is severely injured and all your children are dead. At that point, he wouldn't even know what happened. And it would have been even more devastating to learn your spouse was the one responsible. Your entire family is basically dead. That marriage is over, even though she's still alive. She might be alive, but there's no coming back from this. We love giving second chances in the U.S., but there's no second chance coming here.
Yeah, and you can make the argument that anyone who commits a crime like this obviously is not right in the head. For anyone who's willing to do this, I mean, think about anybody that commits a murder. The average person is not walking around every day thinking about killing someone. So for you to plan to go out and kill someone and then follow through on that plan already kind of makes you a little bit crazy. You know what I mean? But yeah, the husband, oh my God. I could only imagine what I would do if I walked in my house and learned that my wife had killed my children.
Well, in this case, keeping in mind, she jumped out the window. She was outside the house.
Yeah, that's true.
And she's severely injured. She's not talking to you. You aren't getting any information from her, so the police are going to show up first.
Yeah. I think it'd be pretty easy, though, to kind of piece two and two together. Like, if you see her with, like, her wrist slit, I think that would kind of be a giveaway that she was involved, right? Like, at that point, it looks like a murder-suicide.
Maybe. I haven't seen any pictures of it, but there's a chance that she was attacked by someone. You never know.
Yeah.
In the heat of the moment, it'll be tough to make that call.
Yeah, that's just, oh my God. I honestly could not imagine how I would feel in that. And they say, too, that anytime a husband and a wife lose a child, I think it's like between 80
It's
and
over.
90%, the marriage ends. Like it ends up failing when that happens and you lose a child. And we're not even talking about like to murder or something like that. We're just talking about just regular, some freak accident, a car accident, or maybe an illness or something like that. And two parents lose a child. That marriage is over. So in a case like this, 3 kids gone and your wife is the one that killed them? Oh, I couldn't imagine how that would feel. But then what's even crazier is that this man had to learn that his wife killed all 3 of his children, and now all the feminists online are blaming him. They're saying that it's his fault. This is just one of those things that, the accountability is... And like I said, if we flip this and we put the shoe on the other foot and we said that Lindsey Clancy came home to find that all of her children were dead and her husband Patrick was laying on the ground incapacitated with his wrist slit and possibly drug overdosing, and then for her to find out that he killed all the kids and then tried to kill himself, no one would be trying to blame Lindsey. Everyone would say, wow, this father is a piece of garbage. He is a piece of human garbage, and he should be cast away and thrown in jail forever. But when the shoe's on the other foot and it's the woman that does it, we still find a way to blame the man.
That's that whole equality thing, but only when it benefits them.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to go too far into detail. I just wanted to bring this up here for the end of the show. Did you see any of the debate between Andrew Wilson and Candace Owens talking about the whole conspiracies around the Charlie Kirk murder, assassination?
Yeah, I saw it. It was pretty clear. Candace is one of the conspiracy theorists herself.
Yeah, I haven't seen the whole thing. I've seen a ton of clips, but it went exactly how I expected it to go. Andrew Wilson was giving sound evidence, all the evidence that we've been pointing to. And Candace Owens was basically just saying, well, I feel this way. That was her entire argument. I feel like he was just a patsy. I feel that Israel was involved. I feel that the government set Charlie Kirk up. That was her entire argument.
The most noticeable part for me was every time Candace Owens was asked a question, she hits you with the legal disclaimer, then she dodges. Then when Andrew Wilson would double down and re-ask, she'd say, oh, you put words in my mouth. I didn't say that. For example, when Andrew Wilson asked how Erica Kirk or Turning Point USA was complicit in the death of Charlie Kirk, she goes on a rant to say, I didn't say that she was complicit in his death. I just said she was complicit. And he said, okay, complicit in what? And then she went on a long rant about how it was her opinion that something was off, so that's how she's complicit. So apparently complicit to Candace Owens doesn't actually mean anything. It just means you are alive and breathing when something happened.
Yeah. And then they fact-checked her, and they played a video where she actually says it out loud. And it's like, okay. And we've been saying this for a while now. I used to be such a fan of Candace Owens. But then this whole shift happened, and now especially with the assassination of Charlie Kirk and this whole conspiracy thing, like she is going off the deep end. And at this point, I'm starting to feel like some people were right when they said that she's only doing it to get clicks. Like at this point, after that debate with Andrew Wilson, I don't even think that she actually believes what she's saying. I think she's only doing it so that because her viewership is way up. And that's why. This whole Charlie Kirk thing, that's why her viewership is up. And she's only doing it to get clicks, in my opinion.
So you're essentially saying it's about the money. I could believe that, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's all about the money now.
Because
she did not give me one piece of anything to tell me that I should think that there's some conspiracy theory here.
Well, she was straight up asked if she had any evidence for it, and she said no.
Yeah. She had nothing to show any evidence. And everything that she's come up with thus far has just been wordplay and, wordplay games and little tricks and things like that, and just ways to kind of pull you in and make you think there's something going on, but in reality, there's nothing there. It's all smoke and mirrors.
Yep.
But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up real quick. Obviously, like I said, we didn't watch the whole thing, but I've seen a ton of clips. I feel like I've seen the majority of it now at this point. But that is it for the Republic Brothers podcast. Before you click away, please hit the subscribe or follow button. New episodes drop every Monday and Thursday. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.